Hi everyone, I'm going to explain about the introduction of TOEIC and the listening part, especially part 1 about the photographs. So let's check this out. So, do you still remember about the test that I asked you to do last week, especially about the reading? Well, there are some of you got 100 but the others got like 50, 20 or even 15. Don't worry, I will give you some tips later on how to do the reading test. But now, first of all, I would like to review what you know about TOEIC. So TOEIC is actually stands for Test of English for International Communication. So we have to emphasize on the word communication. Why? Because the TOEIC test measures your ability to use English in daily business situations. So you can see the example there, and one of the examples here is IT, right? So like you are going to be an IT personnel in the future, right? And then the scores of the TOEIC test that you will get show how well you communicate with others in business, commerce, and industry. Why? Yes, because you are here in Polynema, which focus on the vocational education, and you are trained to be able to get ready or prepared in the business situation in the future. Okay? And the TOEIC test consists of two parts. The first part is the listening part. The duration of the listening test is 45 minutes. Well, you have to do 100 questions in 45 minutes. Wow! So you must be kind of nervous in doing the test, right? And again, you are going to be just fine. Why? Because I'm going to explain to you about the tips how to do the listening test after this. Okay? In listening test, there are 4 types of a test. The first is photographs. The second is questions and response. The third is short conversation, and the fourth is short talks. So as you can see, the photographs, as you remember about 3 years ago when you started studying in Polynema, you took the PECT test. If you remember, the first part of the test is about guessing the photographs, right? Guessing or choosing the best statement describing the photograph. And there are 10 questions in it. And then in questions and response, you are usually listening to a questions and the list of the responses on the audio file. So there are 30 questions in a question and response. And then the third part and the fourth part of a test is about the short conversation or dialogues, right? And then the last part is the short talk. In a short talk, usually there is only one person talking about something. And the second part of the test is a reading test. So unlike the listening test, reading test duration is 75 minutes. And look at the questions. The questions are 100 questions. So in 75 minutes, you must be able to answer the question less than 1 minute, right? Okay. And then in the reading test, there are 3 parts. The first is incomplete sentences for 40 questions, and the second one is text completion. The text completion and error recognition are 12 questions, and the last part is about reading comprehension itself. So like what you did last week. There are two kinds of reading comprehension or passages that you are going to do or to read. That is a single passage and double passage. Okay, now what about the tips? So I told you before, right? I'm going to give you some strategies or tips in doing the TOEIC test. The first is that you must plan your time carefully. Why? Of course, because in doing the TOEIC test, it limited by time, right? Take for example for reading test, in 75 minutes you must be able to finish 100 questions. Okay, so that's why you need to plan your time carefully. It means that you need to work as fast as you can. Do not get stuck into a questions that you forget to move on to the following questions. So remember, you here is learn about how to move on, right? Do not get stuck into a questions that you forget to move on to the following questions. Okay, once more, do not get stuck into a questions that you forget to move on to the following questions. Okay, so I will repeat this over and over because the word move on is not only happening in your love life but also in doing the TOEIC test. Okay, and then next is that do the easiest question first and go back to the harder ones. It means that when you read the questions and you think that it is difficult for you, then skip it because you are limited by time. That's why you need to work as fast as you can. So try to find the easiest questions. If you do all the questions until, for example, 100, then if you see that there is still time for you to finish it, just go back to the hard questions that you have found before. And if you still do not know the best answer of each, you are encouraged to predict or guess the answer. So here, I highlight once more, you are encouraged to predict or guess the answer. It means what? Just choose any answer that you think is best, because you are here encouraged, you are motivated to predict or guess the answer, right? Why you should need to predict or guess the answer? Because in doing the TOEIC test, you are not supposed to leave any questions unanswered. It means all the questions must be answered in the answer sheet. So if the time is permitted, then try to make your best guess and fill in all the answers in the answer sheet. Why? In this test, you are suggested to answer all the questions because you will not get a score reduction or penalty if you choose a wrong answer. So it's different from SNMPTN or UMPT or UMPN, where when you got a mistake in, for example, in a questions number 25, and then you will get a penalty for 4 points if I'm not mistaken. But in doing the TOEIC test, there is no score reduction or penalty. That's why you need to be able to answer with the quotation mark here, because you are suggested to predict or guess the answer. The next is use the order of the questions as a guide. So it means that mostly the answers in the reading and the listening tests are usually arranged in the same order as the questions. So it means that when you read a text in the questions number, like for example 1 until 5, it means that the first questions of that reading text, the answer will be found in the first part of the text. So the first part of the text usually includes in the title of the first paragraph of the text. And the questions number 2, the answer of the questions number 2 will be found after you have found the position of the answer of the reading questions number 1, and so on. So here, for example, the answer for the first questions is found in the first paragraph of the text, and then the answer for the second is usually found after first, and so on. So it happens also in the listening test. So when you listen to the conversation or the short talk or the small talk, right, the third and the fourth part of the listening test, you will find the answer in such order the same as that on the reading test. Okay, and then the last part is the last strategies is that become aware of the features that can make incorrect answer choices attractive. In here, you must be careful in a tricky choices which you think is right. So just like in doing Pancasila UTS in Pancasila, for example, in mata kuliah Pancasila, or in other social subject like kewirausahaan, usually when your teacher give you multiple choices, you have a tendency to choose the option that has a lot of words in it, right? So there is a natural consideration that you have probably had in your mind that the longest choices of a sentence is the best answer of all the questions. But in TOEIC test, it cannot be like that. So you need to be careful in it.